Jayom Vishnupad Paramhansa Paribrajacacharya Astottara Satashi Shrimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adigaur Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinatha Shai Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Jamuna Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we're reading from Canto 11, Chapter 2, Texts 23, 24, 25, and 26. The first three texts do not have any purport. Text 26 has a 2-page purport. So we'll read the slokas and the purport, and then we'll have a wonderful discussion about these slokas. So this is text 23. Avyahatesta gataya surasidha sadhya Gandharva yaksha narakinnara nagalokan Muktas charanti municharana bhutanata Vidyadaradvijagavam bhuvanani kamam Avyahata, unimpeded. Istagataya, in moving as they please. Sura, of the demigods. Siddha, perfected mystics. Sadhya, sadhyas. Gandharva, heavenly musicians. Yaksha, associates of Kuvera. Nara, human beings. Kinnara, minor demigods who can change their form at will. Naga, and serpents. Lokan, the worlds, Mukta, free, Charanti, they travel, Muni, of the sages, Charana, angels, Bhutanata, ghostly followers of Lord Shiva, Vidyadhara, Vidyadharas, Dvija, Brahmanas, Gavam, and of the cows, Bhuvanani, the worlds, Kamam, however they want. Translation. The 9 Yogendras are liberated souls who travel freely to the planets of the demigods, the perfected mystics, the sadhyas, the heavenly musicians, the yakshas, the human beings, and the minor demigods such as the kinnaras and the serpents. No mundane force can check their free movement, and exactly as they wish, they can travel as well to the worlds of the sages, the angels, the ghostly followers of Lord Shiva, the Vidyadharas, the Brahmins, and the cows. Text 24. Ta ekada nime shatram upajagmur yadrichaya Vitayamanam rishibir ajanabe mahatmana te, they, ekada, once, nime, of King Nimi, Satram, the Soma sacrifice, Upajagmu, they approached, Yadrichaya, as they wished, Vitayamanam, being carried out, Rishibi, by sages, Ajanabe, in Ajanaba, the old name for Bharatvarsha, Maha Atmanaha, of the great souls. Translation. Once in Ajanaba, the former name of the earth, they came upon the sacrificial performance of the great soul Maharaj Nimi, which was being carried out under the direction of elevated sages. Text 25. Tandrishva Surya Sankashan Mahabhagavatan Ripa Yajamano Gnaya Vipra Sarva Evo Patastire Tan, them, Drishtva, seeing, Surya, the sun, Sankashan, who rivaled in brilliance, Mahabhagavatan, the pure devotees of the Lord, Nripa, O King Vasudev, Yajamana, the performer of the sacrifice, Nimi Maharaj, Agnaya, the fires, Vipraha, the Brahmins, Sarve, everyone, Eva, even, Upatastire, stood in respect. Translation. My dear King, seeing those pure devotees of the Lord who rival the sun in brilliance, everyone present, the performer of the sacrifice, the Brahmanas, and even the sacrificial fires stood in respect. Text 26 will chant responsively. Vidayastan abhipretya Narayana Parayanan Prita Sampujayam Chakre Asanastan Yatarhata Videhastan Abhipretya Narayana Parayanan Prita Sampujayam Chakre Asanstan Yatarhatha Videhastan Abhipretya Narayana Parayanan Prita Sampujayam Chakre Asanastan Yatarhatha. Matajis? Translation. King Videha, Nimi, understood that the 9 sages were exalted devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, overjoyed at their auspicious arrival, he offered them suitable sitting places and worshipped them in a proper way, just as one would worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We can read together. King Videha, Nimi, understood that the 9 sages were exalted devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, overjoyed at their auspicious arrival, he offered them suitable sitting places and worshipped them in a proper way, just as one would worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. The word Yatarhatha is significant here. According to Vishwanath Chakravarti, the word Yatarhatha means Yatochitam, or according to the proper etiquette. It is clearly mentioned here that the Nava-yogendras are Narayana Parayana, exalted devotees of the Supreme Lord Narayan or Krishna. Therefore, the word Yatarhatha indicates that the king worshipped the 9 sages according to the standard Vaishnava etiquette. The etiquette for worshipping exalted Vaishnavas is expressed by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur with the words Saksha Daritvena Samasta Shastrai. An exalted Vaishnava being totally surrendered to the will of the Supreme Lord is taken to be a transparent medium for the Lord's will. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita it is stated that even by a moment's association with the pure devotees of the Lord, one can achieve all perfection in life. Therefore, as indicated by the word pritaha, King Nimi was overjoyed by the auspicious arrival of the sages, and therefore he worshipped them just as one would worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although impersonalist philosophers claim that every living entity is equal to God, they callously step over the heads of their so-called spiritual masters and freely speculate on the nature of the Absolute, giving their own whimsical opinions in defiance of the impersonal whims of their so-called gurus. In other words, although Mayavadi impersonalists claim that everyone is God, they ultimately show an offensive mentality toward the Supreme Personality of Godhead in rejecting the reality of his eternal form and pastimes. Thus, they unwittingly belittle the eternal position of all living beings by denying their eternal personality and activities in the kingdom of God. The impersonalists, through their mental concoctions, try to minimize the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entities who are part of him, reducing them theoretically to a formless, nameless light, which by their concoction they claim to be the absolute God. The Vaishnavas, however, welcome the Supreme Personality of Godhead and easily understand that the unlimited Supreme Personality has nothing to do with the conditioned, limited, mundane personalities we find in the material world. The impersonalists arrogantly assume that there could not be any transcendental or unlimited personality beyond our present experience. But the Vaishnavas intelligently understand that there are many wonderful things far beyond our limited experience. Therefore, they accept the words of Krishna, who states in Bhagavad Gita 15:19, Yomam evam asamuda, janati purushottamam, sa sarvavid bhajati mam, sarva bhavena bharata. Whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, without doubting, is the knower of everything, and he therefore engages himself in full devotional service, O son of Bharat. In this connection, Srila Prabhupada states, there are many philosophical speculations about the constitutional position of the living entities and the Supreme Absolute Truth. Now, in this verse, the Supreme Personality of Godhead clearly explains that anyone who knows Lord Krishna as a Supreme Person is actually the knower of everything. The imperfect knower goes on simply speculating about the absolute truth, but the perfect knower, without wasting his valuable time, engages directly in Krishna consciousness, the devotional service of the Supreme Lord. It is not that one should simply speculate academically. One should submissively hear from Bhagavad Gita that these living entities are always subordinate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyone who is able to understand this, according to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, knows the purpose of the Vedas. No one else knows the purpose of the Vedas. Therefore, exalted devotees such as the 9 Yogendras always accept the supremacy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as expressed here by the word Narayana Parayana. King Nimi was a Vaishnava, and therefore he worshipped the great sages with the same respect with which he would worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as shown by the word Yatarhataha. Although impersonalists falsely claim that every living entity is equal to God, they cannot properly respect any living being because of their original offense at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality. Their so-called worship, even of their own gurus, is ultimately self-serving and opportunistic. When an impersonalist imagines that he has become God, he has no further need for his so-called guru. The Vaishnava, however, because he accepts the supremacy of the eternal personality of Godhead, is ready and willing to offer eternal respect to all living beings, especially to those most fortunate living beings who have achieved shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. A Vaishnava's worship of the Lord's representative is not self-serving or opportunistic, but is an expression of eternal love for the Lord and his representatives, as indicated here by the word pritaha. Therefore, it is clear from this verse that not only the 9 exalted sons of Rishabhadev, but also King Nimi himself were all great devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in defiance of the artificial and limited concept of impersonalism. Om Jnana Timurandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunalitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sva Padantekam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Diti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Arigor Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So within these verses, there are 4 personalities. They're all great souls. They're all Narayana Parayana. That is Vasudev, who is inquiring from Narada Muni, and Narada Muni is answering his query by referring to the Navayogendras and Maharaj Nimi. Now, each one of these 4 great personalities, the Navayogendras are considered as a whole, have a genealogical background. For instance, Vasudev. Vasudev, we know that he is the father of Lord Shri Krishna and Lord Balaram when they appeared here in Mathura. Originally, he and his wife were Prishni and Sutapa, the most pious progenitors, son of Brahma himself. Now, when Brahma was given the order to create progeny within this universe, he had many sons, and he instructed each one of them to create more sons. So Prishni and Sutapa, for 12,000 celestial years, they performed severe austerities in the heavenly planets, and eventually the Supreme Lord appeared to them. And for 3 births, they had the Supreme Lord. Their wish was that if they have to have a son, let that son be the Supreme Lord. So first the Lord appeared as Prishnigarbha, then as Vamanadev, and finally as Sri Krishna. But they are the eternal parents of Krishna. It's not that they go back to Godhead. Whenever Krishna, it's called eternal Leela, Nitya Leela, because Krishna, just like the sun is traveling across the sky to different places, so Krishna with his Nitya Leela and his Nitya Leela associates, they travel from universe to universe, displaying the eternal pastimes to attract the living entities back to Godhead. And some eternal associates do not go back to Godhead. For instance, Arjuna, he stays with Krishna. He travels with Krishna, and whatever universe Krishna's having his pastimes, these eternal associates travel with the Supreme Lord. So that's Vasudeva. Now, he was lamenting to Narada Muni. Narada Muni, he is also a son of Lord Brahma. He was originally, in a previous birth, a Gandharva, and due to an offense committed in the assembly of Lord Brahma, he was forced to take birth as the son of a maidservant here on earth. As the son of a maidservant, he had the opportunity to serve some Bhaktivedantas during the Chaturmas. He heard from them about the glories of the Supreme Lord, and only once he was able to take their remnants with their permission. When they left, soon after, his mother, he was only a 5-year-old boy, his mother was bitten by a snake, and he was left completely alone without any shelter. He started to travel. In his travels, he went through so many cities and uninhabited forests and all over the planet. And once overcome by thirst and hunger, he was sitting in meditation. At that time, the Supreme Lord appeared to him and informed him that this would be the only time in this lifetime he could have darshan, but he would meet the Supreme Lord. So when that day of Brahma, when Lord Brahma merged again along with all the living entities into Mahavishnu, that young boy who became Narada Muni also merged, and during the next creation, he came out as the son of Lord Brahma, the incarnation of devotional service. So this is the original conversation. Now Narada Muni, because he is a pure devotee of the Lord, the Supreme Lord personally gave his Veena, the Veena, to Narada Muni so he could chant the glories of the Lord. He travels all over the universe, enlightening people in devotional service. Each disciple of his, he gives a different instruction, all within the context of devotional service. But just like if we've heard it many times, if you go to a chemist and you say, I'm sick, give me some medicine. The chemist will say, where's your prescription? Then I'll give you the medicine. So each disciple of Narada Muni is instructed according to what they need to hear. So when Vasudeva supplicated himself before Narada Muni, he loved to visit Dwarka because there he got to see and worship his Supreme Lord Narayan in the four-armed form, who's none different from Krishna. He would also come here to Vrindavan to see Krishna Leela. But specifically because Krishna spent so much time in Dwarka, Narada Muni would go there. And once he came to the home of Vasudeva, and Vasudeva inquired from him, he was lamenting that when I had the opportunity, I prayed for a son, and I didn't pray for liberation. So Narada Muni, understanding the question of Vasudeva, who was himself a great devotee, the father of the Supreme Lord, he gave a particular medicine by describing a conversation between Maharaj Nimi and the Navayogendras. So who are the Navayogendras? Lord Brahma, in the very beginning of the creation, his son was Swayambhuva Swayambhu, and then Swayambhuva Manu, his son. Swayambhuva Manu, we know from the previous cantos, had two sons, Priyavrata and Uttanapad. Priyavrata also became a disciple of Narada Muni. He did not want to take part in the kingdom. He left and went to the ashram of Narada Muni. And it took Lord Brahma, Swayambhuva Manu, all the demigods to convince Priyavrata to return to the kingdom and perform his duty as a Kshatriya Raja Rishi. So when he returned to take up the affairs of state, he married and he had sons. So one of those sons was it Nabi? No, Agnidhara. So Agnidhara, he, carrying on the instruction of Lord Brahma, he desired to have a son, and because it was Satya Yuga, the beginning of the millennium, he went to perform meditation in the Gandhamadana mountains in a cave. Indra could understand, because Indra had also gone to convince Priyavrata to return. He could understand the mood of the son of Priyavrata, Agnidhara, and he sent Purvachiti, a beautiful Apsara, to be the wife of Agnidra. So they had 9 sons. And Priyavrata, with his chariot, he was so powerful, he had created within earth 9 islands. So each one of those 9 sons took the reign of the 9 islands. And one of those sons was Nabi. That's why this particular earth planet is called Ajanaba. Each one of the 9 islands was named after the 9 sons of Agnidra and Purvachiti. So originally, at this time, the earth planet was called Ajanaba after Nabi Maharaj. Nabi Maharaj, being such a great devotee, his son was a plenary portion of the Supreme Lord, Rishabhadev. Rishabhadev then had 100 sons. We read about his instructions and his sons in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And of those sons, the foremost, the chief, was Bharat Maharaj. And he became such a great ruler that the name was changed to his name, from Ajanaba to Bharatvarsha. And next came, after Bharat, came the Nava Yovanas. Nava Yogendras. The Nava Yogendras, who were completely renounced devotees of the Lord, Narayana Parayana. Now, the occupation of Narayana Parayana, Parayana means to go forward. It's a path. It's a path towards the Supreme Lord. So what they do in the case of Narada Muni and the Nava Yogendras, they wander, they travel throughout the universe, and they enlighten people wherever they travel. That's why this first sloka mentions where the 9 Yogendras, as liberated souls, were able to freely travel to the planets of the demigods, the mystics, the sadhyas. Now, each one of these planets, they're particular living entities who, just as we are human beings, the Naras, and we get to live on the Earth planet, and it's a middle planet. So some of these planets are upper, some of them are lower, and they get to travel to all these planets to enlighten the living entities to take up devotional service. So these are the Nava Yogendras. After the Nava Yogendras, there were 9 other sons who again took up the ruling of the 9 planets. And then there were the 81 Brahmins who took up the Smriti Yagya performances. So this is the genealogical progress of the Nava Yogendras, coming from Lord Brahma. Then we have Maharaj Nimi. In Treta Yuga, Krishna personally instructed the sun god, whose name was Vivasvan. He was a Kshatriya. He instructed him in transcendental knowledge, and this is what's described in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Now, Vivasvan, having received that knowledge directly from the lotus mouth of the Supreme Lord, he then instructed his son. His son was Vivasvan, his son was Vaivasvatamanu. His other name was Shraddhadev. So it goes from Krishna to Vivasvan to Vaivasvatamanu. Then Manu had many sons from his wife, and one day it so happened that he sneezed, and from his nostril came Ikshvaku. So that was the birth of Ikshvaku. And Ikshvaku became the king of the human beings on this planet. Ikshvaku then had several sons. One of those sons was Nimi Maharaj. One of those sons we read about was Nriga Maharaj. So they each had their different personalities, their different activities. Now Nimi Maharaj, because this was Treta Yuga, and in Treta Yuga, the process of spiritual perfection is the performance of yajna. Nimi Maharaj lived in this area, in Bharatvarsha, and his guru was Vasishta. So he wanted to perform yajnas. He was a Raja Rishi, and for the benefit of the people and for his own self-upliftment, he wanted to do the yajnas. So he requested his guru, Vasishta, to please perform a great Soma yajna in his palace. Vasishta, in the meantime, had accepted an invitation from Indradev in the heavenly planets to perform another yajna. So Vasishta told Maharaj Nimi, I'm going to Indra's yajna first. You wait for me. When I come back, then I'll perform the yajna. Now Maharaj Nimi, he was a pure devotee of the Lord. He wanted to perform his service to the Supreme Lord. And he didn't want to have to wait, because he could understand that Vasishta preferred to go to Indra's yajna because he would get a better remuneration. So just as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Sadhu Sang, Sarva Shastra Koi, Lava Matra Sadhu Sang, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. So he didn't want to wait 1 minute to perform this yajna. So while his guru was away, as described here, he performed the yajna with qualified Brahmins and sages. Now, this yajna, it so happened, at that time the Nava Yogendras were wandering, they came to the yajna. I don't know if it was the exact yajna, it doesn't say which yajna. But this is very important, because when Vasishta came back and saw that his spiritual master, that his disciple had disobeyed him, he became very angry and he cursed him. Your body will fall down. Now, Maharaj Nimi, being a pure devotee, understanding what the intent was of his guru, he rejected his guru and he counter-cursed him that your body will also fall down. So they cursed each other to die. So Vasishta, he gave up his body, and by the arrangement, Mitra and Varuna, they saw Urvasi, and by some mystical arrangement, Vasishta was reborn. Now Maharaj Nimi, because the priests and the sages who were performing the sacrifice, they were all very great devotees also, because when the Navayogendras came, they stood up. Even the fire stood up. That's how exalted the Navayogendras were. They prayed, because we know that when we perform yajnas, we make the little pots and we invite all of the demigods and the sages. We invite everybody to come to the yajna. So all the demigods were there in the yajna. And the priests, they prayed to the demigods that, please give Maharaj Nimi his same body back. And the demigods actually, they're not only interested in sense gratification, they have a lot of power. They're able to bring people back to life. We have that whole story of Sukracharya and all of that. So they were willing to do that. They said, yes, we'll give him his body back. And Maharaj Nimi objected. He said, please don't put me back in a material body. He said, it's simply a source of fear, just like a fish in water. Fish in water, he's always afraid that another big fish will come and eat him. I don't want another material body. The impersonalists, they are very afraid of losing their body because they think they're going to have to get another body and another body, so therefore they don't want any body. They just want to merge into the Brahma Jyoti. But Maharaj Nimi, he didn't want to merge into the Brahma Jyoti. He was a great devotee. So the demigods, they blessed him that you will not have either type of material body. Because if you give up your gross body, the gross body had fallen down, you still have a sukshma body, that subtle body of mind, intelligence, and false ego. They said, you won't even have that. You will have your original spiritual body, your Swarup Siddhi, as an associate of the Supreme Lord. And just like the Supreme Lord, it's described in the Bhagavad Gita, some people can recognize him, Avidananti Mamudha, and some people can't recognize him. They blessed him that as you like, people can see that you're present or not see that you're present. So this was the benediction given to Maharaj Nimi by the demigods. That's why here we have references of different names, like Vaideha, without a body. That's another name for Maharaj Nimi. So when Maharaj Nimi no longer had a material body, the sages could understand, just like in the time when Maharaj Vena, he had died, they churned Maharaj Nimi's body. And from that churning came the next king. And because his birth was very exceptional, coming from the churning of his father's body, they called him Janak. And they gave him another name. Because the matana, the churning of the body, they also called him Mithila. And therefore this particular Janak, the first Janak Maharaj, his kingdom was called Mithila. Now, so many generations went by after that, and within that genealogical line, another great king appeared, Kshiradwaja. And Kshiradwaja, it was he who plowed the earth, and Mother Sita appeared. Kshira means the tip of the plow. So this whole line, coming from Krishna, Vivishvan, Vairasvatamanu, onwards, this is the lineage of the Surya Vanks of the Kshatriyas. It's very interesting that Krishna chose to speak this transcendental knowledge to the sun god and not to a Brahmin. Now, why would that be? And why are we discussing the activities, the questions of a Kshatriya, of the kings? That's because it's the kings who rule the human beings and help them in their elevation back to home, back to Godhead. So therefore, the kings, they have to guide the people through yajna. Now, in this age, we don't have any kings. We might have some dictators, but the difference between a king and a dictator is the king is properly trained by the Brahmins how to rule. And a dictator, simply by force or by votes, he'll take rule. So they don't have any good sense how to guide the people. But in this lineage of the Suryavanks, all of these kings were properly trained, and they were able to help their praja, their citizens, go back home, back to Godhead. Now, in the case of Vasudeva, because the original question that Vasudeva, he was a lamentation that I prayed for a son, but I didn't pray for liberation. He had worshipped Anantadev for a son because he wanted to fulfill the orders of his father when he was Sutapa Maharaj, to have a son. Now, Srila Prabhupada explains in the 10th canto, when the Supreme Lord did appear within the prison house of Kamsa, the Lord explained to Vasudeva that eternally you are my father and mother, and I appear, this is the third time I've appeared now as your son, and whenever I appear, you will be my parents. But Prabhupada warns us that this is not the actual best way to approach the Supreme Lord, to beg him to come to the material world. The pure devotee has he's anyabilasata sunyam. He has no desires, no other desires than to please the Supreme Lord. So when one goes back to Godhead, it's a completely different desire. One is the desire to pull the Lord for one's own sense gratification, to become my son. It's a devotional mood. We all want to see the Lord as our son, as our friend, as our lover, but it's not in the same mood as what Lord Chaitanya teaches us. Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitam va jagadishakame, mama janmani janmanishvare, bhavatad bhaktir ahaituki tvayi. That we should not desire for the Lord to do anything for our happiness, according to our desire. Our only desire is birth after birth. We make the Paramartha Puman, that supreme love of God, our goal. And that is how one goes back to Godhead. So Sutapa and Prishni, for 12,000 years, they performed severe austerities just to convince the Lord to come and be their son. But in this age, in Kali Yuga, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has made the process of perfection so simple that simply by the yajna of Sankirtan, chanting the holy names of the Lord and remembering the Lord and hearing from the qualified pure devotees of the pastimes of the Lord and the qualities of the Lord, simply by that oral reception, one can go back to Godhead and become a kinchana, no desires whatsoever. Because what happened was, after the Supreme Lord appeared, first as Vishnu in the prison house, he appeared as Vishnu to convince Prishni that I am the Supreme Lord. Then Prishni asked him to become Krishna. He became Krishna. So that they could understand that he was fulfilling their desires. It wasn't that Krishna wanted to come as they wanted him to come as their son. So he fulfilled their desires. And then after that, after he fulfilled their desire, they engaged in Griha Dharma, which is another kind of Dharma. It's not the kind of Dharma that's going to be discussed by the Navayogendras, the Bhagavat Dharma, the Sat Dharma. They had a desire. They were husband and wife. They had been without children for thousands of years. They wanted to have a son. If they're going to have a son, they wanted the Lord to be their son. So then they engaged in Grihastha life. And even though they got the benediction, Krishna immediately left them and came here to Vrindavan. And for 11 years they were separated from him. And then he returned to them and they had their pastimes in Mathura and Dwarka. So the warning is that do not make the Lord our order suppliers. Even if we have a desire for the Lord to be our son, that's considered not as good as simply wanting to serve the Lord without any desires whatsoever. And that's the process for going back to Godhead. So this is what's going to be described in the coming slokas by the Navayogendras. There will be 9 questions. The questions will, within the next few slokas, the question and answers will begin, and we'll be able to hear about the pure mode of Bhagavad Dharma, how one engages in devotional service, what are the symptoms of a person engaged in devotional service. He becomes so joyful that he dances in ecstasy like a madman. So all of these things ultimately lead to the appearance and the description of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu later when we come to the final answers to the questions. So it's a very important conversation, and because we're interested in going back to Godhead, we should very carefully hear all of these questions and be very grateful, because when Sri Krishna was here playing with his friends, and he happened to kill Aghasura one day, and all of the demigods were watching the beautiful pastime, and they came down and began to offer prayers to Krishna. in this little village here, Jayate. So they were offering prayers, and Lord Brahma was watching the demigods. Who are they worshiping? They're worshiping this little boy. So Brahma, at that time, he got this foolish idea that he was going to challenge the supremacy of Krishna. How can a little boy eating with his left hand be the Supreme Lord? It's against all the principles. So that was when he tried to trick the Lord. He was completely defeated. And 1014, Prabhupada began the translation of 1014 while he was lying here in his bed. We have a few slokas that he translated and purported. And one of those slokas in the very beginning of the prayers, 1014.3, Lord Brahma, he supplicates to the Lord. He's so embarrassed that he caused disturbance to the Lord's pastimes. And he said, actually, the only way to attain perfection is to hear from the pure devotees about your glorious activities and qualities. And no other qualification is required. You don't have to be a Brahmin. You don't have to do a lot of sacrifices, nothing. You simply hear. And what are the qualifications of the speaker? That he must be a humble devotee of the Lord. And the speaker must be fully engaged with his tan, with his body, with his vak, with his words, and with his mind, those three things. He must be engaged in service of the Lord. So the qualification of the hearer is the desire to hear about the Supreme Lord. The qualification of the speaker is that he has the humility and the complete absorption in the service of the Lord. And then Lord Brahma, he says a very important thing. Now this sloka, I'm sorry, I can't memorize Sanskrit. I know the Hare Krishna mantra. This sloka, stita stanam ajita jito pi, it starts like that. He said that you can just stay in your place, wherever you are in the Varnashram system, and by simply hearing of the glories of the Lord, who is Ajita, he becomes conquered by you. This is how to conquer the Supreme Lord, by your love and your love for hearing about the Supreme Lord. So when Ramananda Roy was being, again we have questions and answers. The entire Srimad Bhagavatam is questions and answers. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was inquiring from Sri Ramananda Roy about the perfection of life. He went through jnana karma, mixed. Finally, four things Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejected. No, go on. Finally, the fifth sloka was that sloka spoken by Lord Brahma. And that same sloka is the exact lesson that we're going to learn about pure devotional service. So when Ramananda Roy spoke this sloka spoken by Lord Brahma, he said, yes, this is correct. You can stay in your place, stita stanam or stanam stita. Stay in your place, whether you're a Brahmin, whether you're a Vaishya, whoever you are, and you simply hear about the Supreme Lord. And that way you will attain perfection in your life and in your devotional service. And just by that simple method, you will be able to go back to Godhead. All right, so we have 5 minutes. If anyone has any questions. Yes, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you for a wonderful class. You say that Maharaja's Nimi's body was churned and then Maharaj Janaka appeared.
Yes.
And then after many generations?
Yeah, because so many generations, all the names are there in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's in the 9th canto, 13th chapter, the descendants of Maharaj Nimi. So after, let's say, 20 generations, then Shiradwaja appeared,
and
who was also called Janak Maharaj.
Acha.
And they were all pure devotees of the Lord. Everyone in Maharaj Nimi's, of his descendants.
Oh, so the son of Nimi's, son of Maharaja Nimi is not father of Sita. He is like her grandfather.
Yes, that's right.
Acha, acha.
That's right.
Okay.
He was the beginning of that dynasty.
Thank you.
Okay? Okay. Yes, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Mother, thank you for the nice class. Can you kindly explain the purport, second paragraph, starting lines?
The second paragraph of the purport.
Yeah, starting lines.
Starting line.
Yeah, in defiance of the spiritual master. Something about impersonalist.
Although the impersonalist philosophers claim that one? Yes, that every living entity is equal to God. Yes. I was reading one conversation Prabhupada was having. The impersonalists, they have given this false nomenclature, Daridra Narayan. So Prabhupada says, why not Dani Narayan? Why not Chaga Narayan? Why not Dog Narayan and why not Cat Narayan? They're not seeing everyone equally. They say the Daridra Narayan is going to kill and eat the Chaga Narayan. Chaga means the goat. And in that way they merge together. So Prabhupada completely refuted this impersonalist philosophy of oneness because they're not seeing everyone as one. Their nomenclature is that Narayan has become poor. Now how can Narayan become poor when he's Shripati? He's the husband of the goddess of fortune. So Prabhupada in many different, and then one gentleman came to Prabhupada that one of your disciples is calling this person who I consider a great saintly philosopher a rascal. Did you say that? And Prabhupada said, when did I say that? Did you hear me say that? So then Srila Prabhupada picked up the Bhagavad Gita. At that time it was 1968. And Prabhupada had not yet printed his Bhagavad Gita from the Vedic Society. It was by some other author. So Prabhupada was using that because the translations of the slokas were correct. And he pointed to one sloka, and he said, this sloka is correct, that devotional service is the highest principle. But now read the purport. And within the purport, the commentator said, it is not to the Supreme Lord Krishna that we have to surrender, but it is to the unborn within Krishna that we have to surrender. And then Prabhupada said, therefore, I call him a rascal. Right? No, there's one other important point here that Prabhupada was quoting from the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, 15:19. Now, the 15th chapter has only 20 slokas in it. It's called the Purushottam Yoga. Coming up on the 17th of May is Purushottam Mash. It's a very good time to study this chapter. Just after this 15:19 saying, whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubting is a knower of everything, and he therefore engages himself in full devotional service, O son of Bharata. The last sloka of that chapter is, and anyone who worships me like this, they become completely successful in all of their endeavors. Now, 20 slokas is very small for a Bhagavad Gita chapter, and chapter 12 also, devotional service, is only 20 chapters. And if you study that, the chapter on devotional service, the exact same conclusion is there. That the highest knowledge is to understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is superior and the living entities, Mamai Vangsa Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. It's all right there in the Bhagavad Gita. So they're denying the Supreme Lord. They're denying that he even can speak. You understand? So therefore, Prabhupada, although impersonalist philosophers claim that every living entity is equal to God, they callously step over the heads of their so-called spiritual masters. Another example is in Mayapur, Prabhupada would take his morning walk, and he was walking with some disciples, and the land wasn't developed yet. There was a hill. So one of the disciples came in front of Prabhupada, was holding his hand till they got to the top of the hill. When they got to the top of the hill, Prabhupada took his hand and threw it away. He said, this is the impersonalists. As soon as they believe that they're God, they don't need their guru anymore. They completely dismiss him. They reject their own guru. So this is impersonalism. We never reject our guru because we understand without the mercy of the guru, just sakshat dari tvenasamasta shastri, that's what the whole purport of this is. Without the mercy of the guru, without getting his pleasure, then that's how we please the Supreme Lord, that we get his mercy. Okay? Thank you. There's one question over here.
Hare Krishna. So as we have heard many times, and
You have to speak louder.
Yeah, as we heard many times in the purport, it was there that we should not approach Lord. We should not approach Lord for as a supplier,
Yes.
or for just for. But we also hear that for everything we should depend on Krishna. So how
Yes.
to understand the difference between both the statements? Like
Yes, depending on Krishna means acting according to his desire, not making Krishna act according to our desire. Forcing the Supreme Lord to come down as your son, it's not the Supreme Lord chose to come down because of the austerities performed, and he wanted to fulfill the desires of his devotees, therefore he came. But higher than that, na danam na janam na sundarim kavita, higher than that is to have anyabilasata sunyam, no desires other than to fulfill the desires of the Supreme Lord. Okay? All right, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, Jai.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,